people who chose the goddess. Can you see the sun? Hello? I might just look at it for a moment. I don't know if this will come into focus for you. I love watching moments. Sorry. I hope that comes out for you. I don't know. Funny way to start a reading, I'm sorry about I was fiddling around with my hair, which I put argan oil in, so it's sort of a bit clumpy. Oh, got the cards back to front. So we're going to do a Celtic cross for you guys today. Welcome to the channel, I'm Philippa. I hope you can see that. This is your inner world, the Queen of Swords. Lovely. And how that's making you act on the outside. So this reading is for Capricorns and those attracted by the symbol of the goddess. Probably got by now. And those attracted by the symbol of the goddess. And I'll put a picture because there's a goddess statue that sits in the garden here. I'll try and take a picture of it and put that as the symbol, but if not, find something that looks similar. How is this Queen of Swords making you act on the outside? Okay, so I had that one in my hand, which was the Hangman, and I put it back, and then we've got the King of Swords, the King of Pentacles, and the Page of Swords. Wow. Wow. With the Hangman. What incredible punchy energy. I turn my head totally, maybe you see. Don't know what it does to it. Anyway, and in the basis of your reading. In the basis of your reading, please. God, that's such a strong start of your inner and outer world. What's in the basis of the reading? What's in the basis reading of Capricorn and Goddess people? It's like they've spoken and now, no, that's too many. Now it's like we've said our piece, we're all out. All these big no-nonsense energies. How funny. Basis of this reading for Capricorn. While I shuffle, I'm going to do this. Basis of this reading is Capricorn and Goddess people. What's at the basis of this reading? I'm curious. Why doesn't it want to tell us? What's at the basis of this reading? No, still nothing. What's at the basis of this reading, please? This is very strange. What's at the basis of this reading? How curious. This doesn't usually happen, so what's going on? Ah, there we go, at last. It was a shame to tell us this. With all that strong energy, it didn't want to admit to a feeling of vulnerability. I think that's how it feels to me. And in the recent past, for the Goddess and the Capricorns that are showing up to this time of this reading, the Nine of Pentacles, lovely, and a potential outcome. potential outcome. Two of Wands. And something for the near future. There's a donkey in the background, can you hear? He's new. Something for the near future. I mean, I haven't heard him. The Six of Cups and the Seven of Wands. And your attitude. Capricorn and Goddess people, your attitude. Your attitude. The Strength and the Three of Swords. Interesting. And what's in your environment, please? Could we have an indication of something that's important in the environment? That's too many. I saw the Hierophant winking at us when we came out, but that's too many. I'm not going to take all of those. Good morning. That's too many. So, sorry, what's in your environment? What's in the environment for these people? The Goddess and the Capricorns that turn up for this time, this reading. Can we have something that's useful for them to focus on in their environment? Oh, lovely. The Empress. And your hopes and fears. Your hopes and fears. The Eight of Cups. And an outcome. An outcome, please. I think that was the Hierophant. He did want to be here. No, it's not. It was the reds that I saw. It's the Three of Pentacles, which is lovely. Really nice. So, we have 15 cards on the bench, and we only have two majors, and they're these two powerful female cards of female kind of divinity. Well, one definitely kind of divine creatrix, the Empress, and the other, the divine magician, the sort of female magician, the alchemist. And then we've got the minor, a sort of minor, very resplendent energy as well here. So they're really winking at me. They're such lovely energy. And in terms of suits, we've got swords, we've got that king and the queen and the page. It's so interesting. Nearly all of the court cards, plus the 3, so that's 4. And then we've got 3 majors. And then we've got cups, we've got 2, pentacles, we've got 2, and wands, we've got 2. So I had a real strong hit about what this was about right at the beginning, which is this at the basis of the reading, because it's such contrary energy to these strong, powerful, clear-sighted individuals that we've got everywhere else. I mean, not everywhere else, but there's a sort of a lot of them in the way that you're acting, basically. And the fact that it took so long to come through, I think what this reading is about the parts of ourselves that the way that shame might live within us. And the reason I'm thinking that is I was listening to just little snippets on Instagram for a guy whose name, I'm so annoyed I can't remember his name. I'm going to put all the details. I don't want to stop the video. I'm going to put all the details in the descriptions or in a little final slide or something. And he's someone I discovered from the moon. I still haven't had enough water this morning. Moon Shining podcast. I listen to it all the time. Again, I'll put all the details, and that is a podcast that is a really wonderful podcast where I've actually done one of her courses, but it was after something very sad happened to me, so I didn't really metabolize it. But I listen to her podcast a lot. She's called Sarah, and I'll put all the details. And she was interviewing this guy about shame, and he's brilliantly engaging. I was looking at little snippets in the middle of the night when I woke up about the parts of ourselves that where we're really cruel to ourselves, but not even just really cruel, where we have a behaviour that we feel is not good, like a kind of I always lose things, or I'm always late, or you're such an idiot, that kind of thing that you've internalized, that you speak to yourself like that about. And it's going behind a little cloud just temporarily. And then and he's very, very, very engaging at explaining how one might investigate. I can hear Giovanni coming down. Investigate that part of you, that activity. So rather than shaming yourself about it, lean into it and discover in your mind what it is that you're expressing through that activity. And then, stopping the violence, he talks about it, of those feelings. And I just got a real hit that that's what we're talking about, because it took so long for that Five of Pentacles to arrive, as if it was a bit ashamed, as if it was hiding. So I think that's what we're talking about. And I will put links, and if anyone suffers from any of those issues, I would really recommend delving into his work, because I find him incredibly engaging, and he does these little live unshaming sessions on Instagram, which I've yet to catch actually, but I've sort of got a sense from this podcast of how he did it, so I think that's what we're talking about. But let's see. So, you inside, no nonsense, say it like it is, the Queen of Swords. She's the bitch of the pack. She's what happens if you become too loving and lovely, like the Queen of Cups. You suddenly feel a bit taken advantage of, and you might flip into this kind of behaviour. But she's the kind of friend that we love to talk to if we want the truth. She's raising her head above those clouds like the sun is about to do. She sort of sits above them with her sword of clear intellect and clear sight. That's interesting, because I think this woman Sarah talks a lot about clear sight channeling. Anyway, she has one little bird straight above her head. I'm looking at all the details I'm seeing. And her crown of butterflies, and the butterfly at the base of her chair, the butterfly there and the crown of butterflies, sort of indicating transformation through the ability to be clear and no nonsense and cut out the crap and tell ourselves some hard truths. Now, potentially, she could be quite a shaming voice. I don't like to say that about her. I don't like to diss her, because she wears this cloak of clouds, so she's in charge of all these kind of she can manage all these sort of more murky, uncomfortable emotions and feelings and thoughts, particularly thoughts, really. She's got them. It's almost like, yeah, that's interesting. It's as if they're like a pelt that she's wearing, like the way that people would have skinned their prey and worn it, like in really ancient times, almost not just as for practical reasons, which of course there were plenty of, but also to say I've conquered this thing, to walk around with your conquering prize on your back. And I feel like that's very like her. And the really cheery part of her is that little crown. So internally, you like using this for, it's rather jaunty compared to everything else about her, and whimsical. But she's a toughie. So there could be an element of you that's a bit tough on yourself, particularly when I see coming out in the way this is making you act. We have the King of Swords, the King of Pentacles, the Page of Swords, and the Hangman. So, and the Hangman came separate because he was what the one, do you remember, I wanted to sort of pick up out of the pack. He didn't really fall. So I'm just going to put him to one side for a moment because he was almost like my comment on all of this energy. So we've got the King of Pentacles sandwiched into between these two swords. So the swords are the suit of air, of thought, clear thought, and sometimes muddled thoughts. But these two are pretty clear thinking. And the Pentacle, the King of Pentacles, is all about looking after. He's very wealthy, and he's all about looking after everybody else. So the feeling I'm getting here is that these two, they're like kind of heavies, either side of the King of Pentacles. Just, because internally we know you've got the Queen of Swords who's not mincing her words and is a little bit tough. And then this cold, emotionless, tough energy of the King of Swords. Now he's got two rather than one bird in the background. And he's not even engaging with the clouds. So the Queen of Swords looks off to the right. And he's looking straight at us and he doesn't want to know about those clouds behind him. They're whatever. He's still got the butterflies. So it shows how his sense of thinking can really be so transformative, and we often need these. And there are these two little fairies that sit at the back and tug on his red head cowl. Do you see on the other side from his sword, near the two little birds? So I think the bird in both cases of the Queen and the King of Swords is almost like your distant, small connection to other worlds that do inform you, which is a relief, really, because it would be awful if it was all just made up from you. It's sort of almost like fairy instincts, animal instincts. No, the birds really indicate clear sight from being able to get a bird's eye view. The fairies, I was feeling, they're kind of tugging at this red head cowl that he's got on, or the red head scarf, and he's slightly ignoring them. And I always feel like they're saying, come on, lighten up, mate. Or can you listen to us sometimes as well? That's how they're coming across now. He's still got the lovely yellow crown of the Queen of Swords, but where hers has butterflies, his is more of a... What's it got in the middle? It's got like a little face of a... Maybe it's a fairy. What do you think that is? Just check my nails. What do you think that one is? In the middle, I wonder what you see. Quite difficult to get it to focus. Anyway, so that's him. He's really emotionless. He's like the sort of big CEO. Despite those whimsical tiny details, really, it sort of says to us he does feel something, but he feels very uncomfortable expressing his emotions. He's not going to. And this lady, the Page of Swords, who's got a flock of birds, she's got all sorts of ideas and she's looking everywhere. She is slightly in the clouds, more than the Queen, but she's got herself onto higher ground. So it's sort of like almost like a sort of really super positive attitude where you know that things are wrong, but you know what you want and you're going to strategize. It's very ballsy. It's very sort of hard-headed, again, in a good way. They're both amazing allies. I don't wish to slag these off, but seeing them in multiple and with this generous, caretaking, wealthy custodian of the land in between, who's such a different energy, I feel like the way it makes you act is you use all your mental powers in order to look after other people and keep your wealth going. And he's quite sort of statusy somehow. to have this wealthy status and this ability to caretake your company, your family, those around you. Oh, I've got ants all over me. I went out into the field at the back this morning and the gate had ants on them. Sorry, ants. I'm looking at the building behind him. Those towers. And how, you know, he averts his gaze, and I love this colouring in of them because it sort of looks almost like he's wearing makeup. And because he's not looking at us, which actually the King of Swords faces us, but he's looking in off to the left, but the King of Pentacles is firmly looking to the left, and the Queen of Swords is looking to the west, and then the Page of Swords is looking at all of them. So you know, there's a sort of lot of dissociation and not really engaging with heart through the eyes with what's going on around us, but it's a very powerful energy. And I'm interested that she's looking back at these two kings as if, even though she's thinking about all the things she wants to manifest, as if she's sort of got their number suddenly, like it's occurred to her that they're quite sort of blokey and, you know, one woman with two girls, you know, is it a feeling of sort of acknowledgement of how a kind of shut down masculinity is at work, or is she just one of the heavies? And then the one I wanted to pick was the Hangman, which says sort of change your attitude, you know, have a moment of pause in order to see things in a different perspective. And that was me sort of feeling it wanting to jump, or it moved itself slightly from the rest of the pack. The other three jumped out. So this, I think, is sort of part of you that is separate from that story, that's saying, I think I need to consider all of this because it's quite onerous, this energy, and I'm beginning to think that there's more to this story, that they're not engaging, those parts of myself are not engaging with the more tender parts. And he hangs there in a rather elegant fashion, and what's he got behind his back? We know he has to pay with a coin, it's Odin. He has to pay for this enlightenment that he's going to get. Yellow shoes. Who else has got yellow shoes? No one here. Yes, he's quite unique on this. He's quite a unique voice. Almost as if something might be communicating to you from elsewhere, to make you reassess how you're thinking and the way that you're acting, and how there might be parts of yourself that aren't being taken care of, because in complete contrast to this powerful, powerful energy, the root of the problem is a feeling of being left out, apart from your community, fear of missing out, kind of feeling very needy, unacknowledged parts of yourself is what I think this is. And it really jumped out at me as to be about shame. And I think he's called Daniel, somebody. I really encourage you to listen to him because he's just very engaging and loving, and funny. And I really got it because, okay, so little story. When I was listening to the podcast, again, this is quite revealing. I keep doing this recently. Originally, this is how I found him. So listening to this Moonbeam something podcast, and he was a guest. And I was listening and I was tidying up. And I can be very, very messy. And it's sort of more than just a bit messy. It's kind of a lot when it happens. And I've been grieving my darling dog for the last few months, and it tends to get worse when I've got feelings I don't want to feel. It's almost like the princess in a story putting brambles up round herself, or finding herself Sleeping Beauty lying in the middle of all those brambles. I always feel like it's some sort of heart protection, thinking of all these energies that we've got here that I put up, but also it's an energetic protection because, so anyway, he's talking about how people are so cruel and violent to themselves about their behaviours, and I was thinking, what would I talk to him about? And I was tidying at the time. I find it really difficult. I've seen people talk about it as an ADHD trait. I wonder, I don't know. Anyway, it doesn't really matter to me. It's more that I understand I find it very difficult. And so I thought, gosh, if I was talking to him, I would talk to him about the fact that I find it so difficult to tidy up. And then he was saying in this course of this podcast, so speak to that part of yourself rather than being violent and othering and cruel and a bit sort of harsh and logical with it. Because of course you want to tidy up. It's nicer to be in a tidy, orderly environment. And he said, speak to that part of yourself. And I was sort of stood on a chair organising a cupboard. I mean, that's the strange thing about me. I really like all the bits in the interior. It's quite organised, strangely organised, like everything in its place. All the ink and pens, of which I have a lot. Oh my God, I've got to talk to you about stationery one day. And notebooks and books. I have lots of these things, all in different places, and my useful things in here. And I was up in the corner of a room on a chair looking in a cupboard that had all my old camera equipment, vintage camera equipment, because I used to love and still do love taking pictures, but I've got lots of old pre-digital cameras. And I was actually looking for this one camera which has just disappeared. It's not bothering me. Anyway, I'll think about that again. I was thinking, as I stood on this yellow chair that I have, I was thinking, what if I lean into this behaviour as he was suggesting? Look at me slightly defensively. I'm crossing my arms. You can't see. I feel a bit exposed. I thought, so rather than being cruel to myself about it and just accept that it's actually serving me somehow, why am I loving to be messy? Why am I doing it? Kind of speak to the mess maker in you. And I started sort of having an inner dialogue while he was talking, and I thought, it just popped into my mind, I thought, it protects me. And then I thought, that's strange. It keeps other people's energy away from me. It keeps people out of my flat. That's strange. So I'm sometimes guilty of, I take it fully responsible for myself as my responsibility of having very permeable boundaries around energy. I can really feel what other people are feeling very, very, very strongly. And this isn't just friends. This is, I was at a play and I was watching the main actor and I was adoring this play, and I left, and for over a week I was crying and sobbing, or 5 days, and I knew it wasn't my grief. And it turned out that this actor had had a terrible tragedy in his family that he hadn't told anyone about because he had to keep getting on the stage. And so he had to hold it all in. And so because he couldn't own it, I think, I felt it and started to express it. And then 4 days later, he announced this fact to the press because he had to take a couple of days off and fly abroad to go to the funeral of a family member. So either he was still suppressing it, or he just told the cast that night. I don't know. But I could feel waves of this grief going through me. So that's just to explain to you how strongly I feel these other people's feelings. And so it suddenly occurred to me, this is like a kind of, it's like a camouflage, an energetic camouflage, like a scent that I'm masking my true scent with, so those feelings can't find me. Or yeah, the bird likes that. That's how it felt. So I wonder whether you relate to that. I wonder whether there's I want you to think about any part of yourself that you're othering, whatever your behaviour is. It could be completely opposite from me. suggest it might be. You know, maybe you're incredibly buttoned up and organised, and maybe that can be a little bit, not OCD-ish, but sort of restrictive, or maybe, I think the bird likes this bit of the story. You know, try and think about what part of it, of yourself, it is that you are cruel and violent to, and it might have been, they're strong words, but they are the way we would very rarely talk to other people the way that we sometimes talk to ourselves. So try and think about those things that you've always been sort of critical of. You might have heard parents or teachers talking badly to you about, that you've internalized that voice. Because it was such an amazing moment. As I thought, I keep people away with this. So I love people, I'm super social, but I mean, I keep their energy away. I keep them, there's so much mess, how can I possibly deal with more mess, metaphorically, of other people's? I need to sort of have this distraction, and therefore it's serving me really well. And as I thought that, I put my hand into the cupboard, and so the camera I still haven't found, and that will be a good day when I find it. But what I did find was a battery that I had been looking for. I mean, I'd turned my spaces upside down looking for a lovely electric scooter that I own. And as I thought that, I found the battery. Now, batteries are really symbolic to me because they sort of make me think of, well, your power. And I found a source of power through that insight. And my boyfriend went, "Oh, God, watch out, world. The witch has got her broom," which made me laugh for hours because I've not been able to use this thing for years because I've sort of packed away the battery. And now I've got this mode of moving swiftly through the world with that insight. And in fact, it was incredibly useful because I used it to come out here. My car was parked miles away. I live within the vicinity of Carnival, Notting Hill Carnival in London, and you're not allowed your cars in and out for a huge area around it because it's 2 million, up to 2 million people turn up. And I was leaving on the last day of Carnival, and so I was able to sort of ride out resplendently with I'd already packed my bag and left it at my sister's, and I had my little backpack on and my charged broomstick / scooter, and off I rode through all the hordes that were coming towards me in the middle of the road, knowing that the police would probably leave me alone because I'm not sure how legal it is. But anyway, there was no traffic. And so it became this really useful insight that had a practical purpose. Sorry, all of that by way of saying, can you think about the part of you that's feeling really left out and not attended to? What is it that you don't let into your consciousness? Because the hangman's asking you to be more aware of it. We need them into this church. Now, really movingly, we see them in the church right at the end in your outcome. So I know you're going to get there. And sometimes we say, look up and see the church. Today I see him looking up. It's almost like you have an awareness of where you need to be. This will be something that you're probably quite aware that you can be really tough on yourself, something you're ashamed about. Some behaviour. You know, do you eat too much, drink too much, drive too fast, too tidy, too messy, too anything, whatever you would berate yourself about, and he's got a bell round his neck. So, well, he is actually looking away from this window, and there's an anchor in the window in the image. And he's got a bell on his neck, indicating the fact that this part of you that's been very unattended to is trying to get your attention now, to me. And in the recent past, you've been feeling lovely. Maybe that's, but very alone, but maybe getting in touch with this Nine of Pentacles energy. What other nines do we have here? We've got the two threes, but 3 times 3 makes 9. So heartbreak of the Three of Swords, also absence, delay and separation times the Empress equals this. Sorry, I'm talking funny numbers. Anyway, what I what I feel is that there's been a moment where you've had some time on your own and you've felt great achievement and probably felt rather soft and admiring of yourself, because this woman has achieved so much. And I imagine you have with these kind of energies, because they can be incredibly productive. And so you've had a moment of pause with your little snail at the bottom, that where you've realised, gosh, I've achieved a lot. I've managed to sort of work and work and work and then make all these pentacles, and I'm in my beautiful garden and I've got my falcon on my hand, and something about, yeah, the falcon on the hand, the bird wants to say, maybe he just likes, yeah, the falcon on the hand. And I read something about how the falcon could fly so much higher when it's trained. So you're acknowledging how much work, oh, they're everywhere now, you've done in the recent past to achieve such a great amount in life. Oh, there's the hot air balloon again. I wonder whether it's in shot. So just a sec, yeah, just before. See if I turn round. Where is it? I need to see it because it's always nice when it turns up. So there's little clouds. It's just coming up underneath those little clouds where that break in the landscape is. So to your, anyway, you might not see it. I'll try and point it out if I see it on the video later. So that's lovely. And the birds. So I'm saying, I think that you have appreciated something greatly about yourself recently, and being quite kind to yourself, and realised. So it's interesting, I'm really wanting, the birds want us to focus on that bird, and I want to focus on it too. Gosh, they're making such a racket, because those birds where you've gained perspective, so the flock of birds above the Page of Swords, the two birds above the King of Swords in the background, and the one bird above the Queen of Swords, above her head, directly above her head. I wonder if you've been listening a bit more to your instincts recently, or your insights, your really kind of far-reaching insights have come back to roost on your hand, and it's with you now, that energy. So, or it has been with you. So I wonder whether this is where this need to change your perspective slightly has come from. She's, Pentacles, like the King of Pentacles. So you have this kind of very rich nature, very abundant sense to you. And it's like she's almost speaking up for this. That's what I feel, that is speaking up for this character who's slightly kind of frog marched into whatever he's doing. They could be bouncers or minders or an entourage, but they also feel like they could be kind of mafia, who are sort of pretending to be really, or those characters in films pretending it's all cool, sort of walking you somewhere, but actually they've got a gun to your back, because he's got his eyes down, or anyway, he doesn't like having to perform for them somehow. And some part of that kind of energy recently has broken out in you in the recent past, and had a really good look at the birds, and had a really good think about your garden and everything that you want without that mental restrictive energy. You've got into a kind of more earthy, very self-appreciative space that I probably don't think you let yourself do very often, and that allows you to sort of, the birds come down, the perspective comes down, and you can gather a bit more information about your situation. And one outcome is the Two of Wands, you looking further with Alexander with his globe, deciding what he wants to conquer next. And what's standing out to me now about this, his red mannered hat, his little red shoes, and these rather sweet little houses that I've never seen before. Oh, and the bridge is there. How amazing. These glasses really, they're a little too strong for my eyes. They're double magnification for what I want, but they really work well for this. So this bridge here is in, we find it's sort of coloured in, but I can see it clearly that it is the bridge, I think. We see it coloured in, we see it in white in the Five of Cups, which we're trying to encourage the character to stop focusing on his disappointments and make his way to that bridge. And then we see it in the background of the Four of Wands, which is a very happy and community-led and celebratory partnership type card. So I think you're wanting to partner. You're trying to work out how to get to a new stage over that bridge. You're wanting to partner with these more gentle sides to your nature, because those houses, so though he is looking out across the sea with his globe thinking, where shall I conquer, I'm looking at those tiny little domestic kind of dwellings at the base, as if he might want to integrate a little bit more of that heartfelt, homey energy, and he's trying to work out how to do it. Yeah, I think that's it. So in the near future, we have the Six of Cups, which is lovely, and we've got the 3, the 6, and the 9 here, and those are Tesla's magic numbers, and I've always meant to look into them, but it's something to do with manifesting. So maybe I'll do a little, I don't know, find a really good little précis of what's going on there, and we'll put that in, because we've got the 3 of the, anyway, we've got the 3 of the Empress and the 3 of Swords, and then we've got this lovely 6 of Cups, and then we've got the 9 of Pentacles. So that feels like a lovely journey from the motherly part of you, attending to your heartbreak or your what you haven't got, the absence, the delay, the separation, that takes you into a place of a very well looked after child and then a resplendent adult. Yeah, I love that. It's like the path to healing those wounded child bits. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. So you've got the 6 of Cups with the 7 of Wands. And I want to say the 7 of Wands is he's got on higher ground, and he's discovered in the near future this tender part of himself, something that he's loved, that he feels nostalgic about. It's a brotherly, sisterly, true love, but super innocent kind of space. And it's like, and he is saying, I'm fighting for this. You can back off all you other concerns. I want to protect these two, because this is something I need to integrate in me. And this character, I'm just getting in your, let's not get this all confused. There's so many cards. So see how the King of Swords has that red cowl with the fairies talking into his ear. Look, he's got a red cowl. So it's like a red hat, a red sort of hood. The king's is obscured by this crown, but here I feel like we're seeing a version of him as a child who you're reconnecting to, who might have listened to the fairies, who had that fairy face on his crown, I'm seeing, who lives in this kind of idyllic interior space where I think there are parts of your inner being from your childhood that can be mined very helpfully to soften your attitude. How wonderful. And yeah, I can see the man in the background with his back to us, again a bit like a sentry, protecting them today. And it's like a part of yourself that was a child being very inflated and grown up and tall in stature, talking to a maturer part of yourself and offering something from childhood to this older part of yourself, who appears like a child at first sight because she's so little, and it looks like an older brother giving something to his his younger sister, but actually she's got white hair, and she's like a little white lady, and she's got a gloved hand. Oh, I love this. And who else has got a gloved hand? And the falcon sits on a glove. So I think it's like part of you that's very connected from a youthful space to that kind of more whimsical, natural, elemental environment. The fairies literally whispering in the King of Swords' ear is now giving a gift of this nostalgia, of this memory, of this heart feeling from childhood, from something from a long time ago, to part of you that then can express that kind of Nine of Pentacles. There's a communication between the part of you that really appreciates yourself and how much you've achieved, and it's opened up a line of communication, the Nine of Pentacles being here, and he is she's able to integrate that and therefore become so resplendent. So it's a really important connection, and you're not wanting, and it's got a little white flower at the top of innocence, and she's accepting it gratefully. She's got a kind of red and orange scarf around her and a dotty coat, this big oven mitt I always think of it as, and a blue underskirt. And she's gratefully receiving it and looking at him with great love. So there's a real lovely connection to something very nostalgic from your past, what you used to love, informing you. And you're going to protect that connection at all costs, even though there are loads of other concerns. And this person is up on a cliff, up on higher ground, a bit like the Page of Swords in your external. And she's the one, do you remember who I said, I think something funny's going on here. I think this lot, this king and this queen, and maybe we're being a bit heavy-handed, and he's also part of that energy, and we need to change perspective. He's part of that energy up on higher ground. He can see how much this part, it needs to be defended, how defenseless and innocent it is, but yet how valuable. Wow. And in your attitude, we have the female magician wrestling with this beautiful lion, and the Three of Swords. So the card of absence, delay, and separation, and the card of female alchemy, magician, a feminine sense of strength, but she is a magician nonetheless. She's got the alchemical symbol above her head. So I think this is part of you saying, don't worry about the delay. The delay to getting to maybe the Empress who appears in your environment next. No, she's saying what you're separated from, this is your attitude, your understanding that where there is heartbreak is from some separation to that youthful part of you, that part that has all the answers to the heart, because you've become so logical and driven by external validation in a way. And so she's helping you because she wrestles with those parts of ourselves that we don't really like to acknowledge, those shamed other parts. She's engaging with and saying, okay, we're here to deal with this. It's like this, the lion's finally going to the dentist. We're going to look at this stuff, but lovingly, and she gains control of those other shamed parts, a bit like me stood on that bench, on that yellow chair, reaching up and finding my source of power, my battery for my broomstick, when I made friends with the part of me that was so messy, and I realised what it was actually serving me, how it was serving me. So this is you doing that work in your attitude, you wrestling with the unconscious parts of you to maturely affect change, because you've realised you need to get back to something from the Six of Cups nostalgic time. There's something hidden there. You've been absence, and it's from that part of you, and there's a delay in getting to it. So you're now addressing that through the lion, like what's hidden in your behaviours, the things that you're so mean to yourself about, the things that you think are your failings that you try and logically work your way out of. How are they serving you? Because the thing about the strength card is once she's made this alchemy, now she's got the ally of that behavior, of that unconscious, of that othered part of you, and it makes her doubly strong. Yeah, the lion today sometimes he looks a bit worried. Today he looks like when you see those endless videos that I'm always watching on Instagram of some really moving thing where there's a deer has turned up and stopped a row of traffic and taken, I think some of these are AI generated, to be honest, and taken the people to find its mother or its child that's trapped somewhere. So it's halted the traffic, and then it's so grateful because these people that it's gone to get rescue it. And I was watching one that was actually really distressing to watch, where this giant sea turtle had swallowed reams and reams, like a sort of magician's handkerchief of netting, and I don't think this one was made up. Oh, one of my hairs is in the tree. It's all lit up. It's really fun. There's a sort of branch coming down and I can see one of my long blonde hairs. How funny. How has it got there? Anyway, yeah, this turtle the fishermen had got the turtle out of the sea. They'd seen it was distressed, and they were pulling and pulling all of this netting, all of this horrible human construct out of its mouth, literally like a magician's handkerchief. It just kept coming and coming, and they were doing it painfully slowly, and that's what this is reminding me of, with the mouth open. And it was so wonderful. What made you want to cry to see the final part come out, and all the bits that had got caught round its netting, around its webbed feet, and it was, and suddenly it's gone, and then they put it back in the water, and you see it. I think it came back to say thank you. I don't know that. I think it was true, but it was free. So that image coming to me is something to do with your mouth, the way that you express yourself. It's got all this kind of mesh and containment, netting, things that are used to sort of rape the seas, really. These giant fishing nets to take more than we need, and it's in the wrong place. It's clogging up your expression. And I'll look up what the sea turtle signifies, because that will have something to do with the story. So he looks like that sea turtle, so gratefully having his mode of expression and all the things that bind him removed from him lovingly by the female alchemist. And that's going to make you feel more connected to some really lovely parts of you. And then in your environment, the Empress, which is just wonderful. She's very like the Empress as well in your recent future. So I think you're feeling pretty good about this. And she's my goddess card. And we're here for the Capricorns and the goddess people. So, yeah, I'm getting a tingle. I think that there's an element of the divine that's helping you in this transformation. I think she would be enormously helpful to think about a goddess that you could relate to. I've always had a lot of help from Brie, when I've done ceremonies and then prayed for her to help me. She does seem to turn up, and funnily enough, the last time I really worked with her, I became incredibly tidy to the point that I was ironing my sheets. I mean, I was looking for things to iron. I mean, that makes them easier to store, so I know it's a no-brainer, and some people say nicer to sleep on, but I always have nice linen anyway. But, I was immaculate the whole time I was working with her, so I think that's why she's coming into mind. And Bridget is the goddess who we can work with to look after our homes, to protect us. She's the goddess of the poet, of the ironmonger, the sort of, the anvil and the iron worker and the metal worker. and of pets. So I feel she's an interesting person for you to think about, because this is you kind of almost treating the lion like a pet, and this is you making friends with the wild falcon and helping it soar further. So Bridget's really coming to mind. But you know, it could be a Hindu goddess, or anybody that you relate to in your culture, or an ancient. I'll show you this picture of this ancient stone goddess here, the eternal mother. It's the idea of, in the environment, is of mothering, that mothering, loving energy that's so creative, that when you can integrate her into this picture, and be in really kind space with yourself, all good things can flow, because she allows you to create, because she would be appreciative and kind and containing and very goddessy. So think about goddesses, because I think that soft energy could help you psychologically, but also I think that when you pray to those deities, they're almost, well, in my experience it works. So for, you know, let's not overanalyze it. In my experience it works. If you think of all the people that have petitioned these figures over time and across the globe, there's a strong energy of faith and love, and a kind of imagined composite imagined reality that makes up those figures, whichever goddess it might be, or just the general idea of the goddess. There's so many thoughts and into the earth of what that is, Mother Gaia, or that it's like it's got its own augmented, you know, it's like a reality that's got a lot of traction behind it, or it's real. What is real, what's not real, or they are real, those figures. Anyway, and Demeter comes to mind as well with the goddess in your environment. So this is Demeter, she's the mother of Persephone, and she's the mother of the seasons, and Persephone is banished to the underworld, which is a bit like where you've been with this kind of harsh mental processes that you've been putting yourself through, and then gains her stripes really with Pluto and becomes the queen of the underworld, and then emerges for spring. So it feels very seasonal and natural and related to the turning of the seasons, and this has got the kind of the harvest season, which is kind of around now when I'm filming this, although this is a timeless reading. So about reaping the benefits. I love it. And the Major 3. So she totally trumps that absence, delay and separation of that Minor 3 of the Swords. She you know, that swordy energy you've been operating on, which has given you this sense of heartbreak, absence, delay, separation. She's in charge now, and of course she can overcome that. Like, the strength is overcoming it in your attitude. And then in your hopes and fears, you want to walk away from what you've loved without trashing it, and transform the way you do something. And I think it's the way you think about things, and the way you treat yourself, and the way that you act towards this shamed, othered part of you. And that's your big wish. And you don't want to knock down all the beautiful cups that are still standing, because you recognize there's a lot of good in you. And, you know, these strong mental processes, they're not to be knocked. It's just there needs to be a new way of relating to them that allows in this energy of the Six of Cups and the appreciation of yourself, and that gets those characters into the church from the Five of Pentacles, the parts of you that aren't acknowledged. So you've got your hand, your Walt Disney, Mickey Mouse hand, white gloved hand, I want to say, or is it just a hand, and the white staff. So you're using your passion to find this new potential, to go out and find this unfilled in bit as of yet. And it's an eclipsed moon, which is coming up for us. We're going into eclipse season in that autumn season. So when I'm filming this, so maybe that, if you see it soon, will have some bearing. And there's a gap I'm seeing in these cups. 1, 2, 3, what's the 7 cups? And the gap is where he exists. So they're all still standing. It's saying there are so many aspects of myself that I do love, but I need to get myself into this gap, the bring into that gap, the parts of myself that I've not been attending to. And that's the mission that you're hoping to find a way of doing that, of integrating these so that life feels a bit more balanced, and that you walk away from the way it's been. And it's also frightening because you don't quite know where you're going. But the beautiful thing is, at the end, we have another 3, this 369 that we're going to investigate. The 3 of the Empress, the goddess, as I'm seeing her, and then this 3 of cooperation, where all parts of you work together. It's just amazing. We've got the red her hood again, turning up, the merchant, the sort of, who is also the King of Swords in our little story. So he's the man with the money, and also his youthful presence managed to inform and start to transform this story. So he's a good merchant. He's also the merchant of the 6 of coins. He also wears this, where he's fair to everyone. Reciprocity. Okay, so we've got him, and we've got the divine parts of you represented by the monk, and then the artisan. And the artisan looks like someone who's here. Yeah, the artisan has got similar colours to the potential outcome, to Alexander looking over the globe, to that 2 of wands. The one who's up on the bench. And how fun. He's up on a chair. He's up on a bench. Do you see? He's the guy that's going to make this happen. And he's up on a bench. And do you remember my little story of standing up on my yellow chair? This isn't a yellow chair, but he's got a yellow apron. And having this epiphany that I need to not other this part of myself, that it's trying to protect me in some way. And that's the point that I find my source of power for my broomstick, for my scooter. That's amazing. And you're working with all parts. Congratulations, Capricorn and Goddess people. You're integrating all your parts, and what you make is this incredible cathedral from your cooperation. You make a space for these people who've been so othered, and they now can be brought into this cathedral that's probably even more amazing than the church that they're outside. You make a space that's safe for all parts of yourself. Oh, I love it. I love the tarot. Right, I'm going to pick a couple of cards extra. One is from the Enchanted Forest deck, which is tarot, but I tend to refer to the book just to see what they've got to say on this. And it's the 5 of Spells. We haven't got any 5s here. The 5 is the suit of Mars, but I think this is the 5 of Wands, the fun one, because most of the 5s can be a bit challenging. But I think this is the fun one of competing. So I think that's what it wants to say to you. Oh, wrong book. So the 5 of Spells. At a glance, friendly competition, striving for excellence, healthy rivalry, learning from mistakes. I love that. Yeah, it's a fun card of all these kids that get in and compete in it to win it. It always reminds me of me playing board games, because I'm like a demon when I play board games. I mean, I laugh about it. I'm sure some people hate it, and I'm trying to be more mature as I get older, but it's that sort of energy of really throwing yourself into a competition with great gusto. A few students from the Woodland Wizarding School have come out to work on their transformation spells, and toady hilarity ensues. Though to us, as onlookers, the scene is humorous, these toad boys are deadly serious about their mock battle. They are learning their craft, exercising their powers, and refining their skills through comradely competition. Each wants to do his best, and that spurs the others on to greater glory. These young wizards do know what they are doing in terms of the spell itself, but magic is still an effort at this stage. With practice, they will soon move on to a more challenging sorcery. Makers of magic know that they can reach new levels of achievement with a little healthy competition. The trick is to keep it light and friendly, not devolve into a fight, which can be especially dangerous when wizardry is involved. Find ways to engage with your fellow wizards through playfulness and encouragement. I think that's so lovely. I think that's turning up to say, use those sort of strong parts of yourself, you know, the Page of Swords and her allies and her King and Queen of Swords. To employ them, but employ them with a lightness, because then you're going to get good at these spells. So you know the formula now. It makes me think of these characters here as well. It's very playful, this energy. Kind of come at it with a kind of fun competition, because it can be really a laugh. Like last night I went and watched some, further up the road into the little village, there was a football practice session going on, and I stood right next to the fence, and my boyfriend was at work, and just watched all this kind of crazy male energy rocketing around, and I could sort of almost imagine myself into the body of a young man, which I've always done since I was little, like imagining myself running, like the speed and the fitness, and it's that kind of energy. Just enjoy it. Use the energy of these strong parts of yourself, but use it lightly. And because you know the spell that you need to cast now, but you just need to do it with fun. Use this kind of strength lightly, and you will graduate to the next lesson. That's so beautiful. And then a card from the Rachel Pollock's Shining Tribe Tarot. There's a big deer barking in the background. We've got the Speaker of Rivers. So let's see what that one says. Speaker of... Oh, sorry. I always get confused at the end. Speaker of Rivers, there we go. So in short, so there's a little poem. I am the one who knows where to look, the dark wind, the storyteller, the child of my voice. Saying, do you remember I was talking about, oh my God, I love tarot. You remember how I was talking about the turtle lovingly having its voice re-given to it by it removing all of this rubbish that's been imposed onto it? We're talking about here the child of my voice, because we're getting in touch with that Six of Cups, that nostalgia, the child that has something really important to say. And the little meaning is storytelling, imagination, the power to inspire or heal others, leadership with the implication of followers. Rivers is not just the suit of emotion. It also symbolises the imagination, which, like rivers, sometimes runs wild and free, even threatening occasionally to overthrow its banks. Other times slowly and trickly, but never vanishes entirely, not even in the worst circumstances. This is your imagination. If you wish to speak the experience of water, we cannot expect it to do in direct, clear terms, to do so in direct, clear terms. Instead, we must let the imagination tell us its messages through its own language of metaphor, myth, riddle, and story. A multicoloured fish, symbolic of endless variety and change of the imagination, leads a school of fishes, each with its own colour. Though we all hear the same words, a genuine myth gives each of us something different. It brings out the colour concealed within the greyness of our daily life. On the fish's tail appears the phrase, and on the way I told a tale of such power. And on the way I told the tale of such power. I love that, written on the big fish's tail. The words come from a mystical teacher named Rabbi Nachman of Bratslav, who gave us a direct teaching and gave up direct teaching and instead told stories to his disciples. His school, shown here as a school of fish, the full sentence ends, of such power that all who heard it had thoughts of repentance. Wow. Sort of repenting against the cruelty that you've done to your othered parts, to those parts of shame, is what's come to me. Rabbi Nachman understood in such moments of telling that stories can make us feel things that we will then come to understand as we ponder each story's message. By contrast, if we understand something intellectually, with all those swords intellectually first, we may never take it into our lives. Stories are life-giving. They lead us to knowledge of our own truth. The fish has sharp teeth, for stories sometimes bite. At the bottom of the card, we see a bowl, symbolising the power of myth to bring back marvels from the formed surges and instincts of the unconscious. Nachman was not a man who believed truth was always pleasant and light. He once said, "The entire world is a narrow bridge. The important thing is not to be afraid." Oh, that makes me feel confused. I want to sort of think on that. The entire world is a narrow bridge. The important thing is not to be afraid. And yet he trusted stories told spontaneously on the Sabbath to lead his students to redemption. At the top, we see a trio of buildings based on actual works by an architect, I.M. Pei. They remind us of the real world of human culture flows from the river of imagination. Oh, I just love that. So what it's saying is, get in touch with this imaginative, beautiful, whimsical, mythical past. And what might the story be, the gift of the story be that he's telling your older self? What's the story you need to hear now? Because they're a bit like the babes in woods, aren't they? Even though we know she's sort of old as well as young. She's sort of your young old person, baby granny, or that eternal part of yourself that's always been there. So what is that story that can transform you? And stop trying to use the intellect to run the show. It should be in service of something a bit more mythical. And then you'll bring everybody into the cathedral that you're building. Oh, I love your reading. Got a little snail working its way towards me on the bench again. So sweet. That's amazing. So that little snail who appears here, just remember her as well. She's getting a last minute. She wants the last word. She wants me to say how well you've done, how amazing you are, how you've trained and tamed so many parts of yourself. Just keep going. Bring in all of those shameful other ones. And I'll leave links to all these ideas. The 369, the guy that works with shame, the Moonbeaming podcast. I'll leave a link to that. And to anything else, I'll rewatch this. Thank you. What a beautiful, beautiful way to start the day, and congratulations. I'm really pleased that you're having this epiphany and you've got this incredible energy. See you again, I hope.